I never believed in monsters. Not the kind that hide under your bed or the ones that creep through stories meant to keep kids from sneaking out at night. I was a reporter, the kind who chased down real danger, political corruption, factory accidents, things you could prove. But that changed the winter I drove into Point Pleasant, West Virginia, chasing whispers of a winged figure that had been haunting the town for decades. The locals called it the Mothman. I called it nonsense, until I saw the eyes. They were red like burning coals, watching from the tree line, patient and unblinking, as if it knew I was coming. I've spent years trying to forget that night, but memories have a way of clawing their way back when you least expect them. Maybe telling this story is the only way to make it stop following me. Maybe that's what it wants. I arrived in Point Pleasant just before dusk, the kind of cold Appalachian dusk that settles into your bones. The sky was bruised purple, the river was black glass, and the town looked half asleep, tucked between rolling hills and fading light. Everyone I spoke to gave the same warning: don't go out past the TNT area after dark. The name came from the old World War II munitions plant north of town, now just a maze of crumbling concrete domes swallowed by trees. Teenagers used it for parties, hunters used it for cover. But the real story said that's where the creature lived. I thought it was folklore, a good local scare. I was wrong. The first person who talked to me was Linda Scarberry. She was older now, soft-spoken, eyes tired but steady. She told me what she saw back in 1966, when she and her friends first reported the Mothman. 2 red lights in the dark, glowing like reflectors but too high to be car headlights. A shape, tall and human but not. When it spread its wings, it filled the sky. I remember how her voice trembled when she said it followed their car for miles, gliding above the road without flapping once. I asked her if she thought it was still out there. She said, it never left. I left her house that evening with a strange heaviness in my chest. Every shadow seemed thicker. Every gust of wind sounded like a whisper. I told myself it was nerves, the mind playing tricks. But when I reached the old TNT area, the air changed. The forest was too quiet, as if it were listening. The concrete bunkers loomed like tombs, their entrances yawning wide, and my flashlight beam shook though I tried to keep my hand steady. Somewhere deep inside, something shifted, a scrape, maybe an animal. Then I felt it, the weight of being watched. It started as a shimmer of movement between the trees. I lifted the light and caught a glimpse, 2 points of red, steady and alive. My throat went dry. The beam wavered, and for a heartbeat, the eyes blinked out. Then came the sound, low and unnatural, like the rustle of heavy wings. I ran. Branches tore at my jacket, my breath came in short bursts, and the dark felt thicker with every step. When I reached my car, I fumbled the keys, slammed the door, and hit the gas. The tires spat gravel, and just before I turned onto the main road, something passed over the car, a shadow blotting out the stars. I didn't stop driving until the town lights reappeared behind the fog. I should have left right then, written my story off as small-town hysteria. But fear does strange things. It digs into curiosity. I needed to know what I'd seen. The next day, I went back. This time in daylight. The woods look harmless, the bunkers silent and empty, their insides echoing with dripping water. I found tracks near one of them, deep impressions, too wide for a man, too narrow for a bear. My rational mind tried to explain it, but the part of me that remembered those eyes whispered another truth. That night, I stayed at a small motel near the river. The owner, an old man named Earl, asked what brought me to town. When I told him, his face changed. He said he'd seen the creature once too, years ago, right before the Silver Bridge collapsed in 1967. It's a warning, he said quietly. When Mothman shows up, something bad follows. I thought it was superstition until I checked the records. 46 people died that winter when that bridge fell into the icy Ohio River. Some claimed the Mothman was seen circling the bridge days before it happened. Coincidence or curse? I wasn't sure anymore. Later that night, I woke to a hum. Not from outside, the walls seemed to vibrate with it. My phone screen glowed though I hadn't touched it. The air felt charged, static dancing over my skin. I pulled the curtain aside. Across the river, in the distance, a single red light blinked in the fog. 1, 2, gone. The hum stopped. Silence returned. I didn't sleep again. By morning, the motel owner was gone. No note, no checkout, nothing. The clerk said he packed up in the middle of the night, said he was done with this place. That was the first time I thought maybe this story wasn't just about a creature. Maybe it was about fear itself, something that feeds on it, spreads through it. I kept thinking of those eyes, how they didn't chase me, didn't attack, they simply watched. As if waiting. As if judging. I stayed in Point Pleasant longer than I meant to. Every morning, I told myself I'd leave, but every night something pulled me back. It was an obsession. It was a sense of unfinished business. Like I'd been marked somehow, chosen to see what others weren't meant to. The town itself felt different now. Locals avoided my eyes, conversations stopped when I walked into diners, and I started noticing missing posters on walls that hadn't been there before. People disappeared here. Most were written off as runaways or accidents, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something darker connected them. Each night I'd drive back toward the TNT area, parking just far enough to see the tree line without stepping into it. Sometimes I'd sit for hours, waiting for those red eyes to return. And sometimes they did. The first time it appeared again, it didn't hide. It stood at the edge of the trees, tall, black, unmoving. Its wings folded tight against its back, the eyes fixed on me with a patience that felt almost human. I wanted to believe it was a trick of the fog or exhaustion from too many sleepless nights. But when it tilted its head, slowly, curiously, I froze. My instincts screamed to run, yet I couldn't look away. It wasn't the look of a predator. It was something worse. It looked like recognition. I blinked and it was gone. No sound, no movement, just vanished. I turned on the car, trembling, when the radio cut through with a voice I didn't recognize. Low, crackling, broken by static. It said one word. Leave. I slammed the radio off and drove straight to the sheriff's office. I told him everything. He stared at me for a long moment before shaking his head. "You've been talking to too many old-timers," he said. "This town's got enough ghosts without you stirring them up." But when I asked about the disappearances, his face changed. His voice dropped. "You don't want to dig there, son." That night, I went digging anyway. Records at the local library told me more than the sheriff ever would. Strange lights over the river dating back to the 1800s. Reports of giant birds, shadow men, unexplained noises. And always before tragedy, fires, floods, deaths. It was as if the Mothman wasn't the cause, but the warning. A harbinger. But a warning from what? The more I read, the more I realized no one had ever truly left this story. Everyone who saw it was changed. Some went missing, some went mad, and some, like me, couldn't stop looking for answers that weren't meant to be found. Days blurred into nights. I stopped calling home. My editor stopped calling me. My notes grew frantic, messy, filled with drawings of eyes and wings I didn't remember sketching. I felt watched everywhere I went. Reflections lingered too long. Shadows moved against the light. Once, I caught a glimpse of my own face in a window, and behind me, something enormous and dark unfolded for a split second before vanishing into nothing. That was the night I stopped questioning whether it was real. A week later, I met a man named Thomas who claimed his brother had seen it near the river. He looked worn down, his hand shaking as he spoke. He said it wasn't a monster, Thomas whispered. He said it looked sad. That stuck with me. Could a creature like that feel sadness? Or was it just mirroring ours? We walked to the river's edge where his brother had last been seen. The current was slow, reflecting the dull grey sky. Thomas said he'd come here every day since the disappearance. I turned to ask if he'd seen anything strange lately, but he was gone. Just gone. One moment he stood beside me, the next there was only the river and silence. I called his name until my voice broke. That night, I drove until dawn, not caring where I ended up. Every sound made me flinch. Every light on the horizon looked like those red eyes. When exhaustion finally forced me to stop, I pulled over at an abandoned gas station. I must have fallen asleep, because when I opened my eyes, I wasn't alone. In the rearview mirror, behind me, something moved. Not fast, slow, deliberate. My hand reached for the door, but I couldn't move. It was standing outside, wings folded, face almost human, eyes glowing softly now instead of burning. It leaned close to the glass, so close I could see the reflection of my own terrified face in its eyes. Then, in a voice that wasn't sound but thought, I heard it say, "It's coming." When I blinked, it was gone. The air felt colder, emptier, like something had been taken from me. I turned the car on and drove without thinking, only stopping when I reached the Ohio line. I told myself I'd leave it all behind, but deep down, I knew I'd brought something with me. My dreams became filled with wings, collapsing bridges, screams muffled by water. I saw faces of people I'd met in Point Pleasant, Linda, Earl, Thomas, all standing on that bridge as it cracked and groaned. And every time, behind them, stood the Mothman, watching me, waiting for me to understand that I tried to outrun it, to bury myself in noise and light, in cities too big for legends to breathe. But the thing about fear is, it doesn't fade with distance. It waits. It hides in corners of your memory until something triggers it back to life. For me, that trigger came a year later, when the anniversary of the Silver Bridge collapse made national headlines. Reporters revisited the tragedy, interviewing survivors, replaying old footage. One of those interviews showed something I wish I'd never seen. A grainy black and white photo taken the day before the bridge fell, just a faint shape above the steel beams, blurred by motion. But I knew those eyes. I knew that silhouette. It wasn't just a shadow. It was him. That image haunted me for weeks. I started dreaming again. Same bridge, same voices, same red glow. But this time, I wasn't watching from afar. I was standing on the bridge, surrounded by faces I didn't recognize. Everyone was calm, smiling, unaware of what was about to happen. And then I saw it, perched high on the cables, wings spread wide like an omen etched against the sky. The world tilted, the sound of tearing metal filled the air, and I woke up screaming. The next morning, I packed my bags and drove back to West Virginia. I needed answers. Or maybe I needed closure. Point Pleasant hadn't changed much. The same quiet streets, the same mist over the river, the same uneasy feeling that the town was holding its breath. I visited Linda again, though she barely remembered me at first. When I told her about my dreams, she nodded slowly, almost sadly. "It calls you back," she said. "Once you've seen it, it never really lets go." She told me there'd been new sightings, strange lights in the sky, animals disappearing, people hearing wings late at night. I could see the fear return to her eyes, the same fear she'd carried for decades. And I realized that the Mothman wasn't just a story. It was a shadow this town could never escape. That evening, I drove to the old bridge site. The new one loomed in its place, all bright steel and modern engineering, but the water below looked the same, dark, deep, and endless. I walked the bank until the fog rolled in, thick and heavy, and then I heard it. That same low hum, vibrating through the ground, crawling up my spine. The hairs on my arms rose, the air crackled, and before I could turn, it was there. Standing on the shore across the water. The same towering shape, the same burning eyes. But this time, I didn't run. I stepped closer to the edge, heart pounding, breath shallow. "Why me?" I whispered. "What do you want?" For a moment, it didn't move. Then, slowly, its wings unfolded. The sound was like fabric tearing through the night. It stepped closer to the river's edge, and the air between us shimmered, like heat rising from asphalt. I could feel something, grief, anger, pain, pouring off it, pressing against my chest. My vision blurred, and suddenly, I wasn't by the river anymore. I was somewhere else, floating above darkness, watching 1,000 moments at once. The bridge collapse, the screaming, the falling cars, the splintering metal. But through it all, one thing remained constant: the Mothman, watching silently, as if mourning rather than causing it. When I came to, I was kneeling in the mud, gasping for air. The creature was gone. But I understood then. It wasn't the bringer of death. It was the witness. The warning. Maybe even the guardian that no one wanted to see. It didn't choose who to visit. It chose who would listen. And somehow, I'd been chosen. The next few days passed in a blur. I stayed in town, talking to anyone who'd seen it recently. The stories were all the same: glowing eyes, wings spread wide, a sense of dread followed by something terrible: a car crash, a house fire, a heart attack. Some said it was cursed. Others said it was trying to help. The more I listened, the more I realized no one really knew what side it was on. Maybe it didn't have a side at all. Maybe it just existed, caught between worlds, forever drawn to human tragedy like a moth to flame. I started feeling it again everywhere I went. Flickers in my peripheral vision, shadows that vanished when I turned my head. One night, I woke to find the room cold enough to see my breath. I looked toward the window and there it was again, outside, motionless, wings folded, eyes faintly glowing. I didn't feel fear this time. Just a strange calm, like I finally understood. It lifted one arm, if you could call it that, and pointed toward the horizon. And in the distance, I saw lights flashing, heard sirens wailing. The next morning, I learned there'd been an accident on the interstate. A truck had jackknifed, killing 2 people. I'd seen the direction. I'd seen it before it happened. It hit me then. The curse wasn't the Mothman itself. The curse was seeing it. Knowing what was coming and being powerless to stop it. I tried to warn people after that. I called the police, sent letters to news stations, even posted online. No one listened. Most thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But when you've looked into those eyes and felt something ancient looking back, sanity starts to feel like a fragile thing. I stayed in Point Pleasant until I couldn't anymore. The dreams grew worse, the whispers louder. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw wings above me. The hum in the air followed me from place to place, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. One night, I decided I'd had enough. I packed everything, got in the car, and started driving west. But 10 miles out of town, the headlights flickered, and the engine died. I sat there in silence, gripping the wheel, too afraid to move. Then I saw it standing in the road ahead. No red eyes this time. Just a dark shape against the dim starlight. It didn't move. It didn't need to. I felt a single thought in my head, as clear as my own voice. You can't escape what you've seen. I don't remember getting out of the car, but I must have. The next thing I knew, I was standing in the middle of the empty road, breath fogging in the cold air, heart hammering like it was trying to escape my chest. The world around me was silent, too silent. No insects, no wind, not even the hum of distant power lines. Just me and the darkness. The Mothman stood maybe 30 feet away, wings folded close, taller than any human I'd ever seen. The moonlight caught on the edges of its form, revealing something both hideous and heartbreakingly sad. Its eyes glowed faintly, not bright red now, but a dim ember, pulsing like a dying heartbeat. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but stare, yet my body refused. It tilted its head, studying me the way you'd study a reflection you don't quite recognize. And then, in that strange voice that wasn't sound but thought, it spoke again. "You still don't understand." My mouth was dry, my voice barely a whisper. "Then make me." The ground trembled beneath my feet. The air grew heavy, humming with electricity. And suddenly, images poured into my mind, flashes, memories that weren't mine. The bridge collapsing again and again. Faces screaming underwater. Fires, explosions, disasters across decades. And behind every tragedy, a shape in the distance. Watching, waiting, mourning. The Mothman wasn't a curse. It was the echo of one. A remnant of something ancient, bound to witness suffering it could never prevent. Maybe once it tried to warn people. Maybe once it cared. But after centuries of being feared, hunted, misunderstood, it had become something else. A reflection of our own dread. When the vision stopped, I was on my knees, trembling, tears streaking through the dirt on my face. The creature stepped closer, slow and deliberate. I could feel the air shift around it, the gravity of its presence pressing against me. "Why me?" I asked again, voice cracking. "Why show me this?" The answer came not in words, but in feeling, a deep sorrow, an understanding that clawed through my chest. Because I had looked. Because I had asked. Because once you seek the truth about the Mothman, it finds you. It leaned down, close enough that I could feel the wind from its wings. The hum grew louder, rattling through my bones, and for a second, I thought it would take me with it. But it didn't. It simply turned away, spreading its wings wide, blocking out the stars. Then, with one heavy sweep, it was gone, vanishing into the night sky like smoke carried by the wind. I stood there for a long time, alone in the silence, the only proof of what I'd seen being the lingering vibration in the air and the cold that refused to leave my skin. When I finally made it back to town, the dawn was breaking. Point Pleasant was just beginning to stir. I walked to the river, watching the sun rise over the water. For a brief moment, everything looked normal, peaceful. And then I saw them, those same faint red lights, flickering deep in the fog above the trees, just for a heartbeat. I knew what that meant. Something else was coming. Somewhere, someone was about to lose everything. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. I left West Virginia that morning, but the Mothman never left me. I see it in reflections, in flashes of red light, in the way the wind sometimes hums before a storm. I feel it watching when I close my eyes, waiting for the next disaster that only it can sense. Maybe it's still trying to warn us. Maybe it's trapped in the endless loop of tragedy it was born to bear witness to. Or maybe it's something worse, something that feeds on the chaos, drawn to pain the way we are drawn to light. I don't know anymore. All I know is that every time disaster strikes somewhere in the world, I check the photos, the videos, the news footage. And every now and then, I swear I see it, just for a second. A dark shape with wings spread wide against the smoke and fire. Watching. Waiting. Mourning. They say the Mothman of West Virginia is just a legend. But legends have roots, and roots grow from truth. I've tried to forget what I saw, tried to live a normal life. But at night, when the world goes quiet and the air turns cold, I can still feel that hum in my bones. And sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I see those eyes in the dark, soft, red, patient, reminding me that once you've looked into the Mothman's gaze, you never truly look away. And if you ever find yourself in Point Pleasant, walking by the river under a foggy sky, and you feel the air shift, if the wind goes still, if the world holds its breath, don't look up, because it's already looking at you.